a couple of minutes. We want to honor everyone's time. We're going to try to keep this to an hour today. Looks like so we've got quite a number of folks signed up today. I believe we've got, based on the registration, I think we've got 10 states represented, 22 judges, 3 magistrates, and some state court administrators. So I know Mr. Mack said he's going to fight with the legislature or work with them, so he'll be leaving a little bit early today. I think that's always exciting or fun dealing with the legislatures, no matter where you are, right? That's So what's the weather like in Missouri? I know we've talked about Indiana. Is Missouri, y'all, are you having a fake fall too, or?
Yeah, I think this is it. So we had 2 or 3, like you said earlier. This is it. I think our temperature, our low last night might be 49.
Okay.
Our high today is probably gonna be about 72. So it's perfect weather, sunny outside. It's
Yeah.
perfect. I was in Greensboro, North Carolina last week, and so I claim responsibility for bringing the good weather back.
I hear you. Uh, all right, well, guys, I guess we can go ahead and get started. People will log in as they become available. I think I know some of you, but not all of you. I am Scott Hassell. I'm the judge of probate in Etowah County, Alabama. I'm serving my second term. I'm year 7 on the bench, and they're doing things a little bit differently for this judges web chat or AOT Judges Chat. They're asking different folks to facilitate. So I guess they couldn't find anyone credible or reputable, so they asked me to facilitate today's meeting. So we'll do it pretty much like we've done the previous ones. I see people are still logging on. We'll give everyone a chance to introduce themselves. We've got some old hands here, Judge Fish, and I see Judge Kazin will be signing on, or he's registered, and both of them are like the fathers of AOT in the United States. So we will look to them as for some great feedback today. But I also had a topic in mind. Of course, we can talk about anything you guys would like, but a topic that I think that comes up quite often. Before we get too deep into this, let me say this. As you know, or you may not know, these web chats are recorded and subsequently posted on YouTube. If you have any objection to that, if you would just send Brooke a chat, let us know, raise your hand, or you can email her after the fact. I don't know if you're like me, sometimes my mouth moves faster than my brain, and after the fact, I'm like, oh, I wish I hadn't said that if it's going to be on YouTube. But do feel free to speak frankly today, and if you have any concerns or you don't want it on the web later, that'll be fine. So let's go ahead and start some introductions. I know looking back at the other chats we've had, they usually take about 12 minutes. So we want to honor your time today. So I'm just going to look on my screen, and Mr. Mack, if we'll start with you, if you could tell us a little bit, maybe your name, where you're from, and just a brief introduction.
Hi, I'm Milton Mack from Michigan. I was a probate judge in Wayne County for 25 years before becoming state court administrator. I have worked to change the laws in Michigan regarding AOT so that now AOT is a standard practice for all of our probate courts in Michigan. We use it as a discharge finding tool. So when there's a petition for treatment, we typically order, where order is granted, we'll order AOT plus hospitalization.
Okay, fantastic. Welcome. Judge Fish.
Yes, sir. I'm Judge Mike Fish from Porter County, Indiana, up northwest of the northwest part of the state, a couple counties east of Chicago, Illinois. I've been involved with the AOT program for roughly 3 years now, and I'll tell you there are exciting things going on here in Indiana. Our county is part of a pilot program. I was at what they called an AOT kickoff event in Indianapolis on Monday. There were 10 counties involved. We have 3 counties currently doing AOT in Indiana, and 7 have signed on to work with our pilot program. So it's pretty exciting to be a part of that, and looking forward to working with all of you and reporting back to our progress and getting some sage advice along the way. I see Judge Rhodey down from Bartholomew County, Indiana, as well. So I think we're all enthusiastic about what's to come.
Fantastic. Thanks, Judge. Judge Stiles.
Good morning, everyone. Mark Stiles, Missouri, Jackson County, which covers Kansas City or metro area. Been on the bench 11 years, probate judge all of those years. No AOT here in Missouri. We don't have the bill, or we don't really practice it yet. We've got I'm the probate judge, of course. We've got the law that allows for outpatient, but it doesn't have the teeth to enforce it. So I drank the Kool-Aid about a year ago. I'm all in. I've started a pilot program just to kind of iron out some of the wrinkles here in Missouri. And so we've got a couple of folks under it, but hopefully we get some legislation in this session. Glad to be here.
Thank you, Judge. Judge Schaefer.
Good morning. Good afternoon. I'm Susan Schaefer. I'm the probate judge in Athens, Clark County, Georgia. Judge Sweat kindly invited me to join y'all this afternoon, and I greatly appreciate him. We have about 5 pilot projects throughout Georgia doing AOT. Clark County is not one of them right now, but we're interested in expanding our services, and it's a work in progress.
Fantastic. Well, welcome. We're glad to have you. Judge Parsons.
Hi, Amy Parsons. I'm the Associate Judge of Harris County Probate Court number 3 in Houston, Texas. I've been with the court for, 20 years. I'm in different capacities: court investigator, staff attorney, and now the AJ. We started the AOT years ago. We called it 1.0, and it didn't work out for multiple reasons. But we did a 2.0, which we started in August of 2020 with the SAMHSA grant, and we've continued on since our grant ended in 2024. Currently, we've served totaling, since the grant started, about 255 participants, and we've seen remarkable results. So it's I handle all the status conferences for the AOT participants, and it's been the best part of my job. So we're doing a lot, and we have a lot more people that we could get into the program if we had the spots for the service provider. So it's we're happy to keep going, and we're looking forward to things to come.
Okay, thanks, Judge. Judge Roger.
Rick Roger. I'm with the Union County Probate and Juvenile Divisions. Here we have both of those going on at the same time. We do have an AOT program, but it's an infancy, so we're just starting out in this. But I am looking, if any of you have given a presentation on AOT, PowerPoint presentation, if you're willing to share it, email me, that'd be awesome. But because I have to do it next week or two, I have to do one, so it'd be great if I could copy somebody else and I can check my own work on something else on AOT. But yeah, like I said, we're just starting it. So any ideas? That's why I joined this, so we can get ideas about AOT. So I'm happy to absorb. So
Fantastic.
Hey, Rick, TAC has a slide deck that I've been seeing for the last couple weeks at a couple different events I was involved with. It should be easy to digest and present if you get it from Brooke.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah, don't reinvent the wheel. There's old saying, milk every cow you can and churn your own butter. So
that's
after
why
you use
I
it,
asked.
times it's yours.
So I asked the question. So yeah.
Gotcha. Judge Sweat.
I'm David Sweat. I am actually a senior Superior Court judge, but I have been involved in writing the legislation that started our AOT pilot projects in Georgia, and then was involved in redefining the criteria for outpatient involuntary treatment in the state, such that we might be able to pursue an AOT program. And I'm on the AOT advisory board to the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities that has been working with the 5 programs that are in existence, and want to see some more programs. I have a particular interest in understanding if AOT can be applied in circumstances where an individual may have been found incompetent to stand trial and is not subject to restoration, but is it still involved in criminal conduct, or also the possibility of other manners of engagement to divert people out of the criminal justice system through the use of AOT.
And Judge Switch, I think you bring up an interesting point that I suspect we can talk about more in a bit. But I have noticed that while AOT seems to have started in the probate world, it seems to be migrating, and they're seeing benefits on the criminal side of the street. So that's a good thing. Thank you for sharing that. Judge Williams? I'm sorry, Judge Williamson. I'm sorry. I saw half of my screen there. I opened the chat up. And by the way, everyone, the chat is active. So if you have any questions offline for Brooke or anyone, feel free to use the chat. I'm sorry, Judge Williamson.
Hi, I no, I was slow because my coordination, I couldn't find what I was looking for. I'm Wendy Williamson, Associate Judge in the Probate Court in Chatham County, Savannah, Georgia. We're in the infancy and we've been kind of stuck in the infancy for a while because, we don't have funding, but we're trying to do status hearings to try to change our local culture so that it becomes something that people think about when we have folks that are resisting compliance with outpatient orders.
Okay, great. Well, welcome. Glad to have you. Judge Prashner.
Hi, I'm Dan Prashner. I'm associate judge in the Travis County Probate Court. That's Austin, Texas, and we've been doing this now for 6 years almost. Through the 4-year SAMHSA grant, and then persuading our commissioners court to give us another couple $1 million for a 2-year extension. Boy, we learned a lot about getting money and getting people to participate and getting hospitals to send us people, and all that kind of stuff. Glad to be here.
We're glad to have you. Judge Rhodey.
Hi there, John Rhodey. I'm in Southern Indiana. We started our AOT court in April of this year, and Judge Fish was a great mentor. He was the first in Indiana. I was the second, and we have a total of 3, like he said, with a significant expansion supported by our Supreme Court. Thank you.
Hey, fantastic. We're glad to have you. All right. I see Judge Kazin has logged on. So, Judge Kazin.
Hey guys, can't get my camera working, but probably because I'm twice the size of the screen now. So if you guys need anything, let me know.
We can hear you, but not see you.
Yeah, no, I guess I don't have the wide angle on. That's the joke I'm trying to make. Yeah, but thank you though. I'm here if you need me, and I'd love to join.
All right, fantastic. Well, that looks like, I believe, everyone. If I've missed someone, just thumbs up or raise your hand, and we'll be happy to give you an opportunity to tell us about yourself. There was a number of topics that Brooke had sent and suggested that we talk about. There's one, though, I guess I'll take a personal privilege. There's one for me that's always a challenge. And I think it kind of goes back to what Judge Stiles said about we do have a law, Judge Stiles, but teeth is still, in the criminal side, if a person is non-compliant with an order, you put them in jail. Not necessarily, not appropriate at all in this world. Here's my first question for you guys. How do you deal with non-compliance? How do you deal with, you've got someone on an outpatient order, they're ordered to participate in AOT and they're just not doing it?
I can tell you what happens in Genesee County in Michigan, where Flint is located. They have the most advanced AOT program in Michigan right now. They've got about population of about 400,000. They've got 800 people on AOTs. And they have 90% compliance with treatment. So these people who would not have been compliant at all before, but so you have 90% compliance. Then the other 10%, if they're non-compliant, they'll bring them in front of the judge informally. And the judge will talk to them and explain how she's hurt, that they're not helping and blah, blah, blah. And that usually takes care of a bunch. And then the remainder, they send to the hospital or crisis center to be assessed to see whether they meet the criteria for hospitalization, which in Michigan is different than for AOT. So if they meet the criteria for hospitalization, they're hospitalized. If not, they're released. However, when they get there, they tell the patient, if you take your shot, you won't be hospitalized, which is true. But the converse is not true. That if you don't take the shot, you will be hospitalized. So they use those techniques to get them on track. But there is no real enforcement beyond that for AOT. But if you work on treatment engagement, you get past that. So when Genesee County has someone on an AOT, they send them a document that says, you're going to be on an AOT, a treatment team will guide your treatment, and you're on the treatment team. So they work hard at engagement.
Okay. It sounds like that connects to one of my favorite keywords in this whole process is in relationships. Judge Fish, I know you've been doing it a while. What's your thoughts?
Yeah,
Non-compliant.
I'm bobbing my head up and down a little bit, Judge Mack. I had the same experience here in Indiana. We have a great team with my Porter Stark Behavioral Health Center, and they had a seismic shift in how they understood their patients and how they worked with their patients. And the big thing they did was to engage with them more. So you start to look at somebody who's not coming in for a shot, and you want to give them a call and find out why they're not coming in for a shot. Maybe it's as simple as they don't have a ride, but there are the things that can go on as well. And they started to have those same conversations like what you mentioned. So noncompliance with treatment is solved in that way. If they're non-compliant in our AOT program and it rises to such a level that they're decompensating and only medical intervention can help them, then we do a thing called an apprehend and return. That's when law enforcement gets involved. They go out to their house, pick them up, bring them back to the hospital or the facility, and then they give them a shot. If they are just non-compliant because they're not supposed to drink alcohol and they decide they want to have a few beers or a whiskey or something every so often, I just talk with them about that during our check-ins. And I do check-ins every third week or so with our clients.
Thanks, Judge Fish. And
I could add to that. In Genesee County, what happens with the people who they take to the hospital who won't take the shot but don't require admission at that time, they know these patients. So they know, okay, it's only a matter of time that they will need to be admitted, and they just track them until that day happens.
Okay, very good. Judge
On your check-ins, can I ask a question? On your check-ins, does the patient have counsel?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
No. My public defender service would have to be paid to be able to be involved in that. Because I have all the parties involved at the check-in, it's an informal thing. I do it in my jury room, and no lawyers are present. And when lawyers have asked to be present, I have told them that it's unnecessary. And then if I have to have a hearing subsequent to AOT check-ins, I make a big to-do of an advisement to the respondent at that point about how I don't consider any of the information that I've learned from our check-ins in the hearing, only the evidence that is presented at the hearing that day it will be considered.
But are they under a criminal order to attend?
No, AOT is, from my perspective, only based on civil orders. When you have somebody who's involved from the criminal side, we do have folks that are working to do the diversion or whatever your state calls deferred prosecution in lieu of prosecution, with an AOT commitment. That's a process that's being tested really in Lake County, Indiana, next door to me here. It's our third county that became involved. So no, they're civil commitments.
That's what ours would be too.
I want to ask a question to follow up. If you're doing these check-ins, can you enter an order requiring them to be involuntarily transported to the evaluation site if they're clearly not going to comply? Or is that not possible because it's just a check-in?
So we have case managers through the community care provider, and we also have an AOT coordinator who reaches out to the participant about the check-in. And if they have a transportation issue, then they usually find them a ride. I'm blessed to be in a county of only a couple 100,000 people, and we only have like 25 long-term commitments in place at any time. So we have the resources for that. Otherwise, they rely on family members to do transportation. Some of our folks are people who are already involved in like transition facilities. But your question is about whether or not I would force somebody to come to the check-in, and the answer is no. If they don't want to come, then that's not a bother to me for the most part. We'll catch up with them 3 weeks later.
You're muted, Wendy.
You're muted.
I'm so sorry. If they come and they're very adamant they're not going to comply, can you switch to judge and enter an order?
No, I absolutely would not do that. I read a book by a guy, Xander Amador, called I'm Not Sick, and a follow-up book called Leap. And I try to employ leap communication techniques with the folks to try to get them to partner with me. Sometimes they still want to cuss me out for a good amount of time, and I'll let that happen as well. I've been cussed out by worse people.
Judge Fish, in Bear County, we and forgive me that my camera's not working, but you know, you are correct, and I love everything you said.
Oscar, can't hear you.
Oh, really? Can you hear me now?
A little better.
Okay, I don't know what's going on with this thing. You know what? I'm going to let you guys. I was going to agree with Judge Fish that it is up to the team, but you have to create your own intercept model. You can't expect that you're going to get somebody in front of you after they've deteriorated, gotten to their worst, and them standing them up in front of you is going to fix it. You have to be able to come in with your team and bring them in an intercept model, and that is when they first start to kind of rub the wrong way. You know, you want to bring them in to, you know, be more intensive with them. Have the judge we do staffings every week. Talk to them about it. If they start to become resistant, then you threaten to take them to the big judge, myself, for example, at the courthouse, and they'll bring him to me and we'll talk. And when they become exceptionally ill, sadly, as much as I'd love to be an old criminal court judge, I'm just not that anymore. I have to wait until they meet criteria to bring them in. But because the team is monitoring them, we bring them in as soon as I have the legitimate legal grounds to bring them in for hospitalization. It's also been my experience that if you can put that together with looking them in the eye and go, look, if you get sick, if you don't help us help you, if you don't work with us, I'm going to have no choice but to take you in. Don't doubt me on that. And the first time I do take them in, the second and third time, they're a little bit more responsive to that. We're going to take you down to the judge at the big courthouse. And when we point our fingers at them, they tend to listen a little more and cooperate. But I agree with Judge Fish. It's up to the team, and it's up to the intercept model that you create.
Judge Kaysen, I recall a couple of chats ago, you shared an idea that I've actually embraced. I like it a lot, where you were utilizing almost a token economy to encourage compliance. And I think setting you had less instances of non-compliance. I think gift cards and things like that. Maybe can you take just a minute and speak on that?
You know, actually, I spoke to it because I was agreeing with another judge that does that. It wasn't I don't do that necessarily. Our rewards come more in positive affirmation in the communication techniques, in making sure that we get them what they need when they ask for it. And, you know, something we would do anyway, but by making it an issue, look, you help us with this, we'll help you with that. That's the reward. Sadly, we no longer have the funds. Some years ago, we used to give them bus tickets. We used to give them food passes and food cards. You know, that helped quite a bit, at least to have the buy-in. But here in the last few years, Bear County's run into kind of my program in particular has run into kind of the shallows, not because of the program, but because our provider is fighting with the county on everything else. So the money's dry, that extra money isn't as free flowing. So I can't comment to me doing it, but I can comment to how that works. And it can work either as an actual physical token and reward, and an acknowledgement that they've done something good, or you can do it psychologically or emotionally. Sometimes you get just as big an effect by getting everybody around them and patting them on the back. I've done that. Stand them in the middle of the room and everybody comes over and pats them on the back, you know, that type of thing.
Yeah, since you had mentioned that, we can't purchase those because of judicial ethics, but some of our local volunteer organizations have done that. I gave you all the credit, so at least in Alabama, I think you're great, Judge.
No, we did that, but actually the way it worked was we gave that to the provider bought it. So in other words, if I gave the provider money here for your benefit, good luck. And then they went out and bought those cards and rewarded them with it. I didn't see a problem with it.
Gotcha.
So, and to answer an earlier question, we're fortunate enough that some years ago, I fought pretty hard to get an actual public defender's office for mental health commitments, which has since grown to a public defender's office in competency restoration and et cetera. But because we have a public defender's office, we always have a public defender anytime I'm in front of the patient, their lawyer is standing right next to them, and their lawyer is there to encourage them to succeed. Unless I do something wrong, then they'll jump all over me. So,
understood. Judge Sweat, what's noncompliance remediation look like in Georgia?
And I have to say, I'm not presiding in an AOT court, but I hear our judges who do talk about, what they're doing. And it's basically what I've heard you say is bringing somebody in. Sometimes there'll be necessary for an order to apprehend to take someone to the clinic for a shot. But a lot of times it's that persuasion and the individual seeking the approval or affirmation of the judge that carries a lot. Not putting people in jail, but using just the power of the court. And if if they are in need of some immediate connection to treatment, that sometimes orders to apprehend are used to ensure that they reach a treatment provider.
I got you.
hey, Scott, can I jump in with a quick joke just as a lesson?
Yes, sir. Of course.
It's not really a joke, but it's amongst professionals here. So somebody was talking about how we could get compliance and with people who resist, and it echoes to that whole black robe effect. To some effect, if they really aren't going to participate, if they've been in prison a million times, they're not going to listen to us. So you can try, but don't cry if it don't happen. But for the most part, there's this guy who's driving past our local state hospital, and he gets a flat, and he goes to change his flat, and while he's taking off the 4 lug nuts on his front tire, he loses them in the grass, and he's just cussing up a storm because he can't find the 4 lug nuts. Well, behind the fence at the state hospital was a patient, and he yells out, "Hey, dude, why don't you get 1 lug nut from each of the other 3 tires, and that way you've got 3 lug nuts on all of them, you can make it home." And the guy turned around and says, "Hey, how'd such a smart guy like you wind up at a place like this?" And he answers back, "I might be crazy, but I ain't stupid." And that's really the basis of AOT. For the most part, there is an effect when a judge is watching you. For the most part, there is a desire to succeed if you've bought into the program. Will we ever be able to address the needs of those people who've been through every criminal court known to mankind and just won't cooperate? No. But to the extent we can help those people who have an exceptional recidivism rate and reduce them from 70 to 90, 80%, 70 to 80% their average usage, that's pretty darn good, I think. And that goes back to, they'll listen.
Pretty good joke.
You mind if I jump in from Indiana?
Please do, sir.
All right. So as Indiana's expanding on AOT, there's been a lot of questions about what data to collect. And so our court collects 3 data points, and it is how many interactions they have at the emergency room, how many inpatient commitments they have, and how many contacts they have with law enforcement. Because when we look at the purpose of AOT in our community, we're trying to reduce the strain on all of those services. And I mentioned that because unlike criminal court, our goal is not to have them show up to court, although we really like that to happen. That is not a data point that we collect. So if they don't show up, that's fine as long as they're compliant and not increasing our other data points and continuing strains on those services. And then we leave it up to the providers. I've had multiple cases where the providers said we have to restabilize them and put them back in inpatient. We do that for whatever period of time is necessary, and then have them come back. And I just got done with my court. Had a guy that showed up for the first time and didn't show up for the next 3 sessions. They put him back in inpatient. He came back out and he's completely compliant, doing really well. But not showing up for court is not necessarily a bad thing as long as they're still compliant and, again, not strain the resources that we're trying to resolve. I say that on top of also helping the patients and the family, but that's how we measure success in our court and how we deal with failures to appear.
Okay. Thank you, Judge. Any other thoughts about non-compliance from anyone?
I would throw this in. So when we go to justify AOT, and when there is a debate as to whether AOT is a toothless tiger, we live in a society where we want success as a statistic. What we should argue is, even when there is non-compliance, there is success. Without AOT, without the judge, without the court managers, without the treatment team, that same person in that same circumstance, as historically they have, will wind up under a bridge, off medication, in the throes of their schizophrenia for months, only to be detained and taken to a hospital where it's going to take months to stabilize them. If you've got them on AOT and they're not complying, well, all of us have the additional option of bringing them back in. So now we're bringing somebody in that's on our radar, has been brought back to the hospital, and you will see that if you track some of those numbers, and this is anecdotal on my part, but if you track some of those numbers, you'll see that their restoration, their respite, coming back into the emergency room on AOT and then being discharged again, is a week, okay? Maybe two. You take that same person without AOT, who's been off his meds for months, and you're talking months and months of restoration, if they're even free enough, by that I mean they're not arrested, if they're even free enough to be taken to a hospital. So there is success even in non-compliance, I would argue.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would add everything to everything everybody says I agree with. I would add that just persistence, I mean, we've had cases where, they haven't shown up for months. They haven't, come to court, or they haven't done X, Y, and Z. And we keep at it, right? We keep trying to have them come to court. We keep having the doctor's appointments. We keep having the care coordinators see them. We give them the same song and dance, and we don't go away. And then all of a sudden they start to comply, and all of a sudden they start to come to court. And so I've heard from the participants that just that consistency and support that they realize isn't going to go away, regardless of how they're acting, good or bad, was helpful to them, because they felt supported no matter what they were doing. And it occurred to them that we were really there to help them and support them in where they wanted to go in a positive way, even when they were non-compliant or misbehaving or, doing, things that they shouldn't be doing. And so, if you've done it 99 times and you're about to throw up your hands, do it the 100th time, and many times you'll get that change.
Thank you. Judge Williamson had put up a question too. I guess it speaks to this particular topic. Her question is an attorney required to represent the outpatient treatment provider during the hearing? Judge Williamson, can you talk a little bit about that? I noticed you mentioned that it was an impairment to your AOT efforts.
Oh, yeah, I'm a little concerned that this is probably a state-specific question, but if the ACT team in our circumstance wants to file a motion for status review, there is a statute out there that says a corporation has to be represented by an attorney. So the first question is, do they have to have an attorney to file the motion for a review? And then the second would be, and I think I heard somebody already answer this sort of, that they don't require attorneys to be present, but is an attorney required to be present at either a check-in or a status review wherein the patient may be ordered back to the hospital?
Can I jump in on that a little bit?
Yeah.
Please.
So through the years, at least in Texas, we've been guided by our ethics and the rules within our ethics commission. And necessarily, if I'm going to have a communication with a person who is in front of me, or that I'm about to sanction, or that could say something that would get him further committed or detained, it's probably wiser to always have an attorney, so that you're not present by their side, so that you are not accused of an ex parte communication with an individual that's in front of you. Having said that, I know that there are many jurisdictions that don't require an attorney to be there during the status conference and meetings and treatment meetings. I've never heard or seen a single one of them get in trouble for it, but I will tell you it's probably a better practice that if you can do it, that the patient always have an attorney by their side if they're communicating with the court in any manner that could affect or may affect further application for detention or application for commitment. Additionally, there was a question here that I think you also asked: do the providers need lawyers? Well, the providers should not be there adversarially, but yeah, if they're in court and they're afraid they're going to get in trouble for not doing something they should, I guess they could bring a lawyer. It was my experience about 15 years ago that the provider, when we rolled this out, they were all freaked out by it, and they sent their corporate counsel down. And the corporate counsel sat through two of these things and said, I'm not coming anymore. So
right. Right. That's the impediment. They're not going to file the motions if they have to pay for an attorney to file those.
Well,
we have a similar I'm sorry, Judge, go ahead.
I was just going to ask when you say they're not going to file you're talking about the provider not filing the motion for what?
For a status review.
Okay. All right. So we changed. You may want to look at what we did in Texas years ago. I lobbied the legislature and we got it to happen. And we did it along with TAC at the time. We changed one little verbiage in our AOT statute that says the judge on his own motion can call a status conference as between the patient, the parties, and the provider. And you can even add a non-adversarial status conference between the such and such, such and such. So I just have a standing order. We meet. My status conference happens once a week when we meet with them, and there we go. But you may consider changing that. That's usually not very offensive, especially if you're saying you have the right to call a non-adversarial conference, not only to see how the patient's doing, but make sure the provider's doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, we address it in Alabama the exact same way. I do that in my initial order, letting the treatment provider know that they can, any non-compliance or any concerns or issues, report that to the court, and then I would trigger a sua sponte status hearing immediately. As a recommendation to you, Judge Mark D'Antonio over, I think it's Muskogee County.
Yeah.
He probably could give you a lot of information about that. He's kind of a mover and a shaker in that part of the state, and
definitely.
And not just in AOT, right?
Right.
Great guy. I love working with him. Any other thoughts on non-compliance?
Well, I think that's what he brought up. I think Judge Kazin said it. Because obviously the status conferences are to look at the participant, how they're doing. But many times, the fact that if there's some issue going on with the provider or the house or the personal care that they're living in, the fact that if they're complaining about something and that I can get the service provider to rectify it, they then start to view me as, like, hey, she's on my side too. And that often helps compliance going forward when they're like, I'm not just, complaining to the wind here. Somebody's really going to listen to me. And the judge doesn't care if it's me or the provider. Everybody's got to be doing what they're doing. And that has helped many times with compliance.
Good point. Again, relationships, isn't it? It's always about relationships. Any other comments or thoughts about non-compliance? All right, if it's okay with everyone, and of course, I don't want to dominate the conversation. If you have a topic that you want to discuss or assistance, please interject at any time. I wanted to share, I guess, next on my list of just things we could talk about. If you missed any of the TAC conferences, I've been to both of them in San Antonio and in Annapolis, and they are very, very informative, very helpful. Not only the technical expertise that you'll gain, but the relationships that you develop are huge. That being said, the last one in Annapolis, I keep hearing this topic of peer support specialist, and TAC had a couple of peer support specialists that spoke in Annapolis. And I must confess, even as a prior treatment provider myself, I don't know that I was fully bought into peer support. Well, I drank the Kool-Aid over the last 6 months as our local community mental health center said, hey, we've got a grant, we've got a peer support specialist grant, we'd like to have them available in the court. And I reluctantly said, okay. To say that it's been transformative for our court is an understatement, not just with the respondent, the person that's suffering from the mental illness, but I can't tell you the number of times in a hearing when I've got a family member there, they're the proponents, and they're at a wit's end. I don't know that our peer support specialist is not working with the families as much as the respondents. I'd love to hear your experiences and what your thoughts are about peer support specialists. I saw a lot of head shaking, so amens. Go ahead.
They're awesome. They can sometimes get to the participant when nobody else can, right? Because they can speak their language. They're like, listen, I've been in that personal care home. Listen, I've been at the psych hospital. I've been at that, actually had that same doctor, and this is what I experienced. And to me, they're invaluable because they really can just, break through where the rest of us can't.
Our experience in Bear with peer support is mostly hit and a little miss. And that is, since they don't work for us and they don't work for the center, they participate because we've asked them to participate. When they are there, and that's usually most of the time, when somebody actually comes to the status conference or develops a bond with the patient, you are correct. It is phenomenal. They can communicate with the patient in a way that neither you or I or any other person who has never been committed can communicate with them.
And we're lucky in Harris County because our provider actually has peer support counselors on staff. Like they're employed by, they're part of the providing team. So, they are an employee, and, so you have a little bit more, it's a little bit more of a formal situation rather than, just somebody out in the community who's volunteering their time.
Yeah, Amy, I think that's what if they haven't already done it, you're correct. I think we're also trying to do that because you guys having it within the LMHA really makes a difference, I think.
One thing I'd suggest if you live in a jurisdiction that has them is the Clubhouse Network, which is that nationwide association of places where people that are suffering from mental illness can go and be together with their peers, without the county or whatever jurisdiction you're in having to pay for a peer support specialist. This clubhouses are full of peer supports in the form of peers, and they get to cook together, they play games, and everyone that I've talked into going to a clubhouse here in Austin has loved it, and doesn't cost anything, and provides them a place where they can be with folks that understand them. So if you have a clubhouse, take a tour and maybe encourage your folks to start going there.
Judge, is that a national network? Can you tell us about that?
Yes. If you Google it, you just Google Clubhouse, mental health, and it pops up.
They're a nonprofit across the country.
Yes,
stronger in some places than others. In Texas, they've got some pretty dynamic leadership in Austin and San Antonio, so they've got some great clubhouses. It's also a good way for the team to incorporate something for an individual who's seriously mentally ill to do during the day. And like Dan said, and by the way, hello Dan. Like Dan said, they really are a phenomenal organization.
Good deal. And just an FYI, so Brooke has put up on our chat a couple of links to the clubhouse. Also, regarding Indiana code, as far as having a provider represented by counsel, that's posted up there too. So again, the chat, sometimes we forget about the chat, but a lot of great information going on behind the scenes. Any other great success or even problematic challenges with peer support specialists? Anyone had any bad experiences? Judge Stiles, I know that your statutes in your state are not allowing you to do a lot of what you're wanting to do, but I commend you for doing outpatient and you drank the Kool-Aid. I think you said that earlier. Do you have peer support specialists? What resources do you have, or what are you lacking, and how can we help you meet those needs?
Appreciate that. So our jurisdiction is about a little under 1 million, almost 900,000. So not as big as Houston, but still a small, big city. We've got a lot of resources. One of the the goals of starting this pilot program was it's clear that these resources don't talk with each other. So there's no synergy. So there's all these different mechanisms, but no one knows what else is out there. And so that was one of the main goals of doing this pilot program without the law to support it, was to kind of figure out who needs to be at the table, who needs to be at these meetings, who needs to be a part of the work teams. We were talking about peer groups. One of the things I've learned one of the gentlemen that's on my caseload, he doesn't have the peer person. And so that peer person is so critical because many times the social worker, the caseworker, the doctor, they'll feel they're not on their team, but that peer person is on their team. They get to be that intermediary besides the judge. And so they've got somebody out in the community that they can feel that's on their team. That's not just the judge, because that's important, because as you all know, they'll come in with their arms folded. They're mad at their social worker because they're not listening. They're mad at the doctor about this. And so just having that peer person that they feel is on their team and can be someone that doesn't have to tell them to go get the shot. They're not telling them to go do this. It's just somebody that's trying to be their friend. And so I think that's critical. But we're just kind of moving along. What we're trying to do is get a lot of support for the legislation. I'd asked a question previously, and I got the answer from the discussion. But I would like to, and I've got some of you I'll email separately, but I would like to see some of your legislation that deals with and I don't know if you all are familiar with the step down and step up basis. Missouri's got big cities and we've got some small towns, and we'll need that step up language in the statute because of these counties or jurisdictions that don't have psych hospitals. And so the ones that don't have the psychiatric hospital, they need the step up basis to get them into this program so they can get the treatment they need. And also our governor, in order for it to pass here in Missouri, we're going to need a lot of somebody mentioned this earlier, we're going to need it. This is a civil proceeding, but when they hear that DMH, Department of Mental Health, can be involved with this to reduce the criminal cases of the waiting on these criminal cases of the having to wait on the doctor to review it, when they hear that it can benefit that's what's really going to help the statute pass. And again, that's going to be some type of different process than our traditional probate, going from the hospital back into the community. And I think at the Annapolis, some speaker talked about how that works. And so I'd be very interested from you all, if you've got that. I think I wrote it down. I think Michigan has that. Now he's gone, but I think Michigan has that concept where you can put this not in the criminal world, but you're allowing the criminal trial to pause and then having somebody go through the AOT program. And so I'm just kind of here listening.
I got you. Yeah, Milton Mack, you saw him here earlier. He's I think he would be a great connection. Matter of fact, I'm looking at his bio. He's the Supreme Court of Michigan's Court Administrative Office rep. So yeah, he would probably be able to get that to you. So maybe you make that connection.
Could I ask where courts are using AOT, say a dismissal in a criminal case subject to AOT, or we have a lot of incompetency issues and people stay in jail for lengthy time and then they stay longer before they go to treatment. Or is that something that's happening in Missouri, or is that happening, you said Michigan, or are other judges dealing with that?
I think it's happening in Michigan. It's not happening here. If I could sell that to our legislatures here, that would have a better sale than just this probate aspect. But it's not happening here, but it sounds like it is happening in Michigan.
It's happening in Alabama, but only for misdemeanors, strangely enough. If the district circuit or even a municipal judge dismisses that, they can refer it over to probate. But unfortunately, the ones that are stuck in jail, probably like in Georgia, Judge, it's the folks with felonies.
Yeah, and we can do it with nonviolent. We have some opportunity in nonviolent misdemeanors, but there's a huge backlog of felon individuals charged with felonies that are not going to be eligible.
Judge Sweet, we as you know, in Texas here, we in particular San Antonio, we had this collapse of our hospital system over the last 3 or 4 years. And forgive me, let me turn this off. That is, we don't have a public mental health hospital any longer. San Antonio State Hospital is closed to us for the civil commitments. They're all forensics now, that individuals to be restored. We don't have a county psychiatric hospital that has more than maybe 5 or 10 beds in a population of 2 million. So we're using all of these private facilities. We take them to the emergency rooms and they detain them. And if they can't find a bed, they let them go in a few weeks. As a result, we've really run into this wall in the last year or two in our census because we don't even have enough time to get them on AOT. As a result of that, we had to look elsewhere for intake. One of the places that we found that bore fruit was the not guilty by reason of insanity. individuals. So they've been found not guilty by reason of insanity. They've been discharged, or they're under supervision for the rest of their lives, but there's nobody to supervise them necessarily. AOT turns into a pretty good either transition into some other form of long-term outpatient treatment, or we can do extended AOTs, which go out to about a year or two. And so that's been some ground that we've gained in San Antonio. The other thing, it is possible, and we do on occasion get some felonies, very few of them, but I do agree, mostly misdemeanors, where the court on the criminal side says, we agree to either hold our case in abeyance or dismiss the case if he meets criteria and he goes on an AOT. It gives me a little extra teeth, because if they do bad, I'll say, I'm just going to report you back to the criminal court judge. That helps a lot. But if you want to look to other ways that can have an impact, look at the not guilty by reason of insanities. Look at the competency restoration, where they've decided to dismiss the charges. And if you can create a liaison between the criminal court system that controls that and the AOT system, the judge that controls the AOT, you may have a warm handoff there that you may be missing.
Okay.
Hey, Mark, I'll post Marissa McDermott's contact info in the chat. What happened to it? Here we go. She's our circuit court judge here in Lake County. Their county is about half the size of yours, but it's still the second biggest county in Indiana. So that's the model they're attempting to set up, and they've started working on that. They take referrals directly from their jail. They've got a psychologist at their jail who makes referrals directly to them, and she works with another jurist, Julie Cantrell is her name. But if you want to contact Marissa and pick her brain, I'm sure she'd be willing to talk about what they're doing.
Usually a good idea to wait to dismiss the criminal charges until you're sure that they're going to be admitted into AOT. But yeah, you can do that too, straight from the jail. If you have a doctor, at one point we had a doctor willing to do that. Now we don't have a doctor there. Everything's an ebb and flow in AOT, but
yeah, I'm not sure their exact model, but
it does work. I mean, they can identify them there. They can do the application for AOT. The only recommendation is if you do that and they also have a pending or possible criminal charge, unless you're doing it at magistration, then I would wait to dismiss the charge till you're sure they go on AOT. Otherwise, you've got somebody who doesn't meet AOT, and you just dismiss their charges, and well, there you go.
Yeah, I think they get the commitment in place before they do any dismissal. Yeah.
Good job. That's some good information. Anything else on that topic? We're at 11:53, so we're about, just shy of 10 minutes left for our meetings there. Those were two topics that I wanted to share, to discuss. Is there any other topics that you guys wanted to discuss? You got an esteemed group here.
But Judge, on the next one, is it possible? Because I need some advice. So for the longest time, we had the county would pay for a considerable number of boarding home beds. So if I took them out of a hospital, they were homeless, or I had a hard time placing them, I could, offer them or put them in one of these boarding homes until we could get their benefits in place and find them more substantial housing, et cetera. And again, because of what we're going through recently here in Bexar County, those are gone now. So I'm having a difficult time, with that component. If I can get some creative ideas on how to find housing for people where I don't necessarily have housing to give them through the county, that would be helpful to me. So that's really, in terms of effectiveness of AOT, I mean, I underestimated just how difficult AOT becomes when you're chasing them down at the homeless shelter to provide treatment,
Judging from the nods, I think everybody has that same challenge. I know we do.
Okay. So basically, I've just joined the rowboat, the lifeboat. Okay, got it.
Anybody got any ideas?
Just one, and like our jurisdiction is fairly big. It's not as big as Austin's. I think you said 2 million. We've got 3 big hospitals here, and one of our hospitals understands the issue, and they're trying to help with this. some of the hospitals do have programs where they would provide funding for housing. And so it's almost like an umbrella or a branch of the hospital, where the hospital still either owns or contracts with these housing institutions or facilities for this temporary housing. And if you look into it, some of them, when the hospital does it, they are actually also providing care. And so a lot of our hospitals here locally will either contract with or own some type of housing development for their transition folks. And they'll have nursing or social workers on staff that would help with that. And I mean, it's kind of deals with that whole, it's a community where it's hospitalization, then the medium ground, and the lower, lesser restrictive placement to kind of get them back in the community.
Thank you for that.
Any
I
other
appreciate that
questions?
advice.
I was afraid we'd get crickets on that one, Judge. I don't know what the answer is. We struggle with that. We even found a little bit of funding here in our community, but even with the funding, the closest thing we got to finding physical plant resources were some of our local budget hotels that said, "Hey, yeah, we'll rent you a room." It's become a challenge for us too.
Yeah, I got to tell you, when I look at the success that we had when we had those transitional boarding home beds or group home beds, to now nothing, it's just phenomenal how much more difficult it is. I knew it would be more difficult. I just didn't have any concept of how much more difficult it would be.
Right. For sure. Well, guys, we're right at the 12 o'clock mark, just a few, or at least we are here in Alabama. I think it's probably 1 o'clock for some of you. But I want to tell Brooke and the folks at TAX, thank you for allowing me to facilitate it. I'm a nobody, but it's an honor. And when I first started interacting with TAC, and the very first chat I sat in on, and the very first conference, and I encountered folks like Judge Fish, Judge Kazin, and there's so many others, D'Antonio. You're a familiar face, but you're providing me one encouragement, because we're kind of riding solo in Alabama. I'm one of 3 counties that's actually doing this. And so it's nice to see that encouragement. So I'd like to leave you with this final thought that might be of help to you. So during COVID, I don't know how your states are, but we have to have so many continuing judicial education hours. And because of COVID, we weren't able to accomplish that as easily as I had hoped. So I reached out to the National Judicial College. I got on their website, and I saw this thing called Mindfulness for Judges, and I thought, that's the most ridiculous thing ever, but it's an easy 3 hours. I'll do it. So I got on there, and they immediately they hooked me when I heard the presenter say this: "As a judge, you wear a black robe that clothes you with impartiality. Lady Justice is blind, so everybody gets a fair shake in your proceedings." Now imagine your very first hearing of the day. You walk in there and the litigants are out of control. The attorneys are just battling each other. They're disrespectful to the court. You're just all frazzled. And you go back to your chambers and you're doing your paperwork, and you realize you've got 12, 13 more cases of the day. The question was this: do litigants 2 through 13 get the same impartial, fair-minded judge that the first ones did? And the answer obviously is no. So they talked about mindfulness for judges, which is basically come back to your office, take just a minute, take a deep breath, relax, and refocus your mind. You guys, I don't know if you realize it, look around our jurisdictions. We're kind of the tip of the spear doing AOT, and that can be stressful. We are faced with challenges that we have no solutions for. So it can be stressful. We can't help anybody if we're not okay ourselves. So I just encourage you, make sure you're taking care of yourselves. Reach out to this vast group of people, and know that we got each other's back. It's an honor. Brooke, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Judge Hassell. That was really, I am with you. Sometimes when I hear mindfulness, I'm like, someone's going to ask me to meditate. But I think that is advice that on and off the bench we could all take. And thank you so much for facilitating for us. I just want to do a quick plug. If any of the folks on this call are not part of the AOT bench listserv, TAC has a secure listserv that is just for judges. And whether you're currently overseeing an AOT docket or not, you are welcome to join. And we really want it to be a collaborative space where you can ask questions of your peers and basically reach all the judges on there. Right now we have about 70 judges on it. So if you are not a member yet, send me an email, put something in the chat, and I can add you. And then I believe our next, well, now I don't have it in front of me. I will follow up with when the next quarterly chat will be held. And don't be surprised. Oh, go ahead.
Just quick thought before we wrap this up. Is it possible for you to call the National Judicial College and see if maybe if we restyle these meetings, just tweak it a little bit, they would allow us to qualify for judicial continuing legal education an hour at a time? I know I've participated in other panel discussions when they frame them in terms of the group panel discussion, where I get CLE credit and they qualify for it. So there's no reason we should cheat ourselves. Any chance we can look into that?
Of course, I will. It's always worth a shot. And I think that anything, you all are really busy, and the more kind of voices we can get in the room, the better. And I do think that would be a good motivator to get folks here too, if we were able to offer CLEs. So I will look into it. But thank you all so much, and thank you, Judge Hassell. That's going to be a tough act to follow, facilitating. So
you're very kind. Well, all right, everybody. Y'all have a fantastic day. Go change the world. See ya.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
bye.
Bye.